On November 6th, Senator Jon Tester held off a strong challenge from State Auditor Matt Rosendale to win his third term in the U.S. Senate. Not even a record 4 visits by President Trump to the Treasure State were able to unseat the Big Sandy farmer from another 6 years on Capitol Hill. And Senator Tester will be a guest this Sunday morning on Face the Nation. And here with us now for a preview of that interview is the Face the Nation host, Margaret Brennan. Margaret, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
All right. Well, Margaret, as we look ahead to this Sunday's program, what will you be looking for from Senator Tester? Can you give us a preview of what you'll be talking to him about?
Well, I think it is so interesting to look at the race that you all had out there in Montana, and to have Senator Tester be one of the very few Democrats to win in a rural state, a red state. And there are questions, can the model he had in Montana be replicated elsewhere for other Democrats who, the criticism is, may have forgotten about that part of their constituency in the more rural areas of the country and need to pay more attention and cater in the 2020 election to some of the concerns and criticisms. I'm also interested in talking to Senator Tester about what is developing over this weekend at the G20 summit that's underway in Argentina. That meeting between President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping will be so key to resolving this escalating trade dispute that has hit agricultural sector quite hard in this country and threatens to impact other products and American manufacturing. So this could be a big story as the two major economies in the world try to sort out these trade disputes.
All right. Well, in Mississippi this week, we saw a candidate backed by President Trump win a Senate seat. Were you surprised that President Trump, who came to Montana 4 times and hammered away relentlessly on Senator Tester during rallies and in campaign ads, were you surprised that he wasn't able to get his candidate Rosendale elected over Tester?
Down in, well, in your Montana. Case in Montana, I think is really interesting because of exactly what you just laid out. President Trump took this race very personally. He tweeted about your senator. He campaigned against him and really tried to defeat him in what is often a narrow race. And this year looked particularly potentially able to unseat Jon Tester. And yet the president did not succeed in that attempt to defeat him. Remember, this beef, so to speak, went back to Jon Tester's role on the Veterans Affairs Committee on Capitol Hill and his scrutiny of President Trump's nominee, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, to run the VA. In what was uncovered were a few things that seemed to have not been vetted properly by the White House, questions about Ronnie Jackson's behavior that Senator Tester put forward. And it was that real, what he saw, the president took as a personal attack on him and his choice as nominee that put him at odds with the Democratic senator. And so that is why President Trump, and when President Trump vowed to defeat him. So to have Senator Tester be a survivor, I think is really interesting. And that's why we want to look at is what happened in Montana, a standalone story, or are there lessons here for other Democrats? Because Tester voted against the president's Supreme Court nominees and survived. He didn't do so many of the things that other vulnerable candidates, Democrats in red states, did do or felt they had to in order to win.
Margaret, we know Senator Tester here in Montana as the farmer. How is he perceived there in Washington, D.C., and has that perception changed since he has won this third term?
Well, we'll see what happens on Sunday's show. I know in my personal interactions with Senator Tester, he always brings up that farming background as informing sort of his worldview, particularly when it comes to these trade issues right now. When it comes to what we are seeing with the impact on agricultural exports because of the trade dispute with China. I think that brings it back to where the rubber meets the road here, the real personal impact. How is it that the American farm community that voted for President Trump is staying with him even now in this trade dispute? Their own financial interests may be hurt in the near term. Will they ultimately be vindicated here and have some trade deals that help level the playing field, or is this pain going to be persisting? That's why I think it's a consequential weekend to be having this conversation, and an important one. We'll also be talking about other things like immigration and what Senator Tester thinks about that, given that we're looking at a government funding potential shutdown on December 7th with a showdown once again over the president's demand for a border wall.
Well, of course, Senator Tester won't be your only guest, I'm sure, on the show. Can you tell us who else you have on this week's program?
I'll be speaking with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, fresh off that G20 meeting and ahead of what will be key meetings for him in Europe. The dispute between Russia and Ukraine seems to be escalating. We want to talk to him about whether there will be a confrontation of Vladimir Putin at that G20 meeting. We'll also be speaking with Senator Mark Warner. He is the ranking member, a Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and ask him about these new revelations that the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, lied to Congress about the president's financial interests in Russia and did so during the campaign. The president says all of this is a distraction and meaningless. But if it was, then why lie under sworn testimony? We're going to talk to Senator Warner about that. And we've also got a few other things in the hopper for you this Sunday.
Well, it sounds like there's never a dull moment in your position as host of Face the Nation, especially in this day and age.
Not in Washington these days.
All right. Well, Margaret Brennan, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us.
Good to talk to you.
All right. And Face the Nation once again with Senator John Tester this week airs Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on MTN.